Show. I'm Connor Sanders.
And I'm Becca Cardenas. We've got a great lineup on the show today, but we'll start with the NBA.
Utah Jazz fans are currently trying to figure out what their team is all about after an offseason that saw the team trade for Mike Conley and sign Bojan Bogdanovic. The Jazz haven't quite performed up to expectations.
The team currently sits at 39-22 with recent three-game win streak, but are 12-13 against teams with a winning record. The team was also planning to move Mike Conley to the bench in favor of Royce O'Neal, but instead moved Joe Ingles to the six-man role. Connor, what do you think is going on with the Jazz?
Well, they're at a really interesting spot in the season. That stat you just mentioned, 12-13 against winning teams, is a little scary because they think that they have NBA Finals potential. And having to make a change like this in the rotation so late in the season is a little bit unsettling, but I just think Mike Conley in a playoff series is too valuable to not have. What do you think the adjustment that they need to make might be?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you mentioned they need to have their starting five, and they're not really quite sure who that is right now.
Yeah.
So I think just trying to stick with one and help those guys work together, I think will be best. But, I mean, honestly, Joe Ingles, when he's firing and he's playing pesky defense, I think that's when the Jazz are at their best.
Yeah.
So I don't know if putting him on the sixth role is the best thing for them, but I know I just really appreciate when Joe Ingles is doing his thing, and I think he really makes the Jazz go.
Yeah, and I mean, Joe Ingles has had a big role in playoff series wins that the Jazz have had recently. Like, he got into Paul George's head, basically took him out of the series. So having him is invaluable, but the defense has struggled so much, and that's usually the hallmark of the Jazz is how good they are defensively. I think you got to ask some questions of Rudy Gobert. Like, he's got to be a depoy, lock down the court type of defender, but just so far this season he hasn't really shown that.
Yeah, that's probably why they have Royce O'Neal in there, is for their defense, but if that's not working, I mean, you got to figure something out. And like I mentioned with Joe Ingles, if he's out there shooting the three, he opens the drive up for Donovan Mitchell, and
Exactly.
that's where Donovan Mitchell is his best, is taking it to the basket and making these crazy finishes, because that's what he's really good at.
Yeah, and the other thing too to consider is that if Donovan Mitchell can't carry a series, because he's played very well in the playoffs, but he has been a little inefficient, and teams do target him. I mean, you know all about what it's like to be targeted in double teams and things. So having an extra ball handler, I think it will prove invaluable. They've got to try and figure out how to get Mike Conley involved.
Yeah, I think others around him need to step up because it is the playoffs. They've already scouted you all season. They know what you're trying to get.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to take away Donovan Mitchell, who's going to be that next man up, and Mike Conley has to make that offense flow a lot better.
He's been to the Western Conference Finals. He's was part of that grit and grind Grizzlies team that surprised everybody. And if the Jazz are serious, if they really think that they can reach the Western Conference Finals, 12-13 against winning teams isn't really enough to prove that, you know?
Yeah, and it's scary that they still haven't gotten it together, and it's already past All-Star break. But we'll see how they end up doing.
Yeah, still a chance. Over the last 20 years, the New York Knicks have been one of the worst-run franchises in the NBA. The team has only managed 3 winning seasons since 2001 and are currently on their 13th head coach during that time frame.
To make matters worse, team owner James Dolan has been booed in the Knicks' home games at Madison Square Garden. Fans have pressured him to sell the team, and public relations incidents have become the norm.
In 2017, the team had former player Charles Oakley kicked out and arrested during a game. And then earlier this season, Richard Jefferson publicly stated that the Knicks were the only team to offer him a contract this summer, but he declined to play for them because of the current state of affairs. And now, most recently, superfan Spike Lee, who has been attending Knicks games for the last 20 years in his courtside seat, said on ESPN's First Take that he is done going to Knicks games for the rest of the season.
And at first, they never said when the thing changed. So why not call me when my deposits due for this astronomical price for Knicks tickets, and I'm one day late? My phone is ringing off the hook. So it's not, if they change the thing, let me know.
So, Becca, what do you make of this whole Knicks situation? How are they going to fix things?
Yeah, this situation in particular with Spike Lee is difficult because you have Spike Lee saying that they didn't tell him they changed the policy. And then you have the Knicks that are saying, we did indeed tell him, and he's playing victim.
Yeah.
But putting this aside, the New York Knicks have had such a struggle as far as their organization goes and the makeup of their organization. So I'm not really sure what the deal is, but I think James Dolan has to do a better job of leading that franchise, and I think that's what most of it is coming from.
Yeah, it definitely ties back to ownership. I think there's no question about that. I mean, Spike Lee was there when Reggie Miller had the legendary 11 points in 90 seconds game. Like, Spike Lee is the best African-American filmmaker of the last 40 years. Like, having him still at Knick games, despite how bad they've been, is a real privilege. Like, can you imagine if the Raptors told Drake that he could no longer be on the sideline because of a small policy infraction like that?
Right.
Of course not. That sounds ridiculous. But the Knicks still harp on these little things, and it's starting to destroy the franchise.
Yeah, and it also starts with who they have on the floor. Richard Jefferson, great shooter, decided not to go there. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, instead of going to the Knicks, went to the Nets. And that's a huge loss, especially with that rivalry up there in New York. So I think they need to figure out the organization and make sure that great players like that aren't passing up the Knicks, because I think once they start winning and building that fun environment for the fans, everything's going to turn around. But it has to start with the organization and James Dolan.
Yeah, and he's a second-generation owner. His dad owned the Knicks. He just inherited them. The issue with this whole situation is that there's just this huge sense of entitlement around the Knicks that's so frustrating because they don't deserve it. They've had 2 winning seasons in the last 13 years, and they just assume that everyone's going to keep caring about the team because they are the New York Knicks, because of Madison Square Garden. But they're not doing enough to not only appease fans, but to put out a good basketball product. So if you can't cheer for what the team is actually doing, and then they're doing these little things like this to alienate famous fans, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and like Spike Lee has spent at least $10 million in the last few decades going to their games. If you're losing a fan like that, what are other fans going to think about that?
Yeah.
They're also not going to want to show up. They're seeing that their front fan isn't going to show up anymore, so why the heck are they going to show up?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Coming up after the break, we'll take a look at some NFL draft prospects.
And we'll take a look at what's going on in esports. Don't go anywhere.
Young women try to change the skin they were born with and say they die for darker skin. Sadly, some actually do. Melanoma is the second most common cancer in teens and young adults, and 1 person dies from melanoma every hour. Change your thinking, not your skin. Stop tanning. Learn more at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Think you found every hazard out here today? Think again. The spot you missed could be a killer. That spot on your skin could be skin cancer. If you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills 1 person every hour. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Welcome back to SUTV Sports Show. One of the most intriguing NFL draft prospects this year is Utah running back Zach Moss. According to Sports Illustrated, Moss is the 5th best running back prospect in his class. At 5 foot 10 inches, 222 pounds, he should be an effective power back demolishing defenders in his path.
Moss was able to help the Utes into the college football playoff discussion last season, but this team ended up falling short with a late season loss. Becca, where do you think Moss will go in the NFL draft?
So I think they're predicting him to go late in the 3rd round. It just depends on which team feels like which player is best for them. I think he's got a lot of options. A lot of teams are very interested in him. He recently got asked to do private workouts with the Arizona Cardinals and the San Diego Chargers. So I think he has just a lot of, options, really.
Yeah, I've seen comparisons for him to Kareem Hunt, which is a pretty great comparison for a running back. He had 3 consecutive 1,000-plus rushing yard seasons while at Utah, averaged 5.4 yards per carry. That's really great downfield running. Everything I've heard about him, though, is that he's not really a big play back, just like a 5 yards, pound of dust kind of guy that could really help an NFL team. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. And just staying in Utah, I can ask you about Zach Larson, SU local prospect. What do you think about him?
I think he's definitely under the radar because of where he's at. He's at a small school. But I think if they watch the film, they see that every time he steps on the field, he's doing his job. He's helping his running back. He's definitely there for his quarterback. So I think also his personality off the field, he's very great. He's a very great person.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great husband from what I've heard. So I think, you know, if a team takes a chance on him, he's going to be he's going to fill in a great leadership role for his locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got NFL pedigree. His brothers have played in the NFL. He is a little undersized, but he's very quick. He's strong for that size. And as you mentioned, I mean, having a good personality, a good presence in the locker room like that from a rookie is so invaluable. He's unlike a lot of rookies. How many of these offensive linemen are married and have as much experience as he has? It just doesn't come like that. So I think that if he's kind of on the fringe, if some team maybe is thinking about taking a shot on him, maybe his personality and the way he carries himself could push him over the top.
Yeah, hopefully they just look at the film and see how many pancakes he got. That guy was a monster. You know, the last 4 years that he's been here, he's been very efficient and just very dependable. I think the coaches love him. You know, I mentioned our athletic director, Debbie Corum, loves him as a person as well.
And you look at the way that football has gone the last few years at SUU has not been good. It's been bad seasons. But Zach Larson has been the one constant. He's been an FCS All-American all 4 years here. Despite the team winning one game one season, we had an All-American. How many other schools get opportunities like that? He's a really special prospect. I'd like to see a team take a chance on him in the 7th round. But I also wanted to ask you about fellow Utah prospect Jordan Love from Utah State University. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's projected to go very high in the draft. A lot of people are shocked by it, but he did run a 4.74 in the 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
For a quarterback, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, everything you could ask for in a quarterback running a 40-yard dash, but he's just very athletic. He can really spread the field. He can move around. He's very mobile. And I think a team that gets him may be very lucky that they got him.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen comparisons for Jordan Love to Colin Kaepernick, which would be incredible if he could move around as well as Kaepernick did. Before the whole kneeling thing, Kaepernick was a beast. And it'll be really interesting to see how he projects. Todd McShay for ESPN has him as the number 6 overall pick right now to the LA Chargers. I've seen him as low as 14. I read something on Bleacher Report saying that he's the biggest boom or bust of this draft. So if a team takes a chance on him, they are really taking a chance. It's not like, you know, the Bengals taking Joe Burrow at the top of the draft. That's really not that much of a chance or a risk because he's so good. But I don't know. His team finished 7-6 his last season at Utah State. He just kind of reeks of Josh Allen to me, and I would feel a little cautious if I was an NFL team looking at him.
Yeah, you mentioned his record, but that means that whatever he's putting out there in the combine, whatever people, these draft prospects, people are watching from his film, it's got to be really great.
Yeah.
They're disregarding his record. They know a lot of wins and losses go towards a quarterback, but obviously, he still has a great chance to go very high in the draft.
Yeah, and players like that kind of work their way up the draft, they just have extra motivation. He's going to be desperate to prove himself, and with Utah State too, like he's putting this program on the map in a way that they really have only been kind of on the fringes. Like you think of Bobby Wagner, and now you think of having Jordan Love. Like Utah State football all of a sudden is going to be a very powerful recruiting presence in the state of Utah if they've got 2 big-name prospects like that in the NFL.
I agree. Next, we'll hear from our reporter Alex Schilling with the latest in esports.
There's a lot going on in esports with some big Overwatch stories, Rocket League expanding competition, and a budding new esports contender. Perhaps the biggest news is how coronavirus is affecting esports. Overwatch's latest professional season has prided itself on introducing an all-new fan-centric homestead system. This means that matches are all being played in person to a live audience of local fans. On one hand, the perfect chance to see some of the best players on a live stage. On the other, there's also a big chance to spread illness by mistake. With this in mind, fan favorites Seoul Dynasty has decided to reschedule their upcoming matches on March 7th and 8th. This comes after the cancellation of Chinese matches in February and March. Player and fan safety is of course the most important thing, but this cancellation presents a tricky situation for teams as a whole due to how few breaks are built into the season. As for the rest of the league, the upcoming Hero Band feature is being implemented starting this week for the pros. McCree, Widowmaker, Reinhardt, and Moira are all getting the axe, which will force players to change up their strategy for their upcoming matches this weekend. For fans of Rocket League out of the loop, the current season should be an exciting one for one specific reason: expansion to the league. The North America and Europe leagues have each increased their teams to 10 rather than 8. While adding 4 total teams may seem small, the injection of more competition should give even more chances to shine. Plus, it's rocket-propelled cars playing soccer. Who doesn't want more of that? Next, we have Teamfight Tactics, a new chess-like game that plays itself. which exploded in popularity after releasing last summer. The game requires strategy, patience, and a whole lot of luck to excel at, and fans are already excited about the esports prospects of the game. Unfortunately, there's not much of a competitive scene right now. Riot Games, developer of both Teamfight Tactics and the esports titan League of Legends, have already said they'll be investing in competitions, which has deterred other companies from stepping in. Those keeping an eye on Teamfight Tactics will just have to wait until Riot throws a ton of money at the competitive scene to build up their latest title. That's all I've got on esports for today. This has been Alex Schilling reporting. Back to the desk.
It's been so tough with all the coronavirus stuff, having to cancel events. I know Rocket League announced today that their World Championship is going to be canceled because of coronavirus concerns, and they were also supposed to participate in the Olympics this summer in Tokyo. So if coronavirus ends up cutting that short, it'll be really disappointing for them.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think I really love these games. They're super fun to play. So it's unfortunate that we won't get to see the professionals doing it, you know?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
After the break, we'll show you part 4 of our soccer series.
Don't go anywhere.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Travel is part of the American way of life.
When we're on vacation, we keep an eye out for anything that looks out of place.
Miss your bag.
When we travel from city to city, we pay attention to our surroundings.
Everyone plays a role in keeping our community safe.
Whether you're traveling for business or pleasure, be aware of your surroundings. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
TV sports show. SU men's and women's basketball have been playing their best basketball inside the America First Event Center this season. The men's team went 9-5 during the regular season at home, while the women's team is currently 11-3 with one more game left to go in the season.
The newfound energy has been palpable in every game we've played. The record for most students at a basketball game was broken 2 different times during the season, according to the SCU Athletic Department. Our reporter Thomas Danella has more on the new 6th man of the AFEC.
SUU basketball has played some of the best basketball Cedar City may have ever seen. With one of the best groups of players in recent years, strong coaching staffs, and a drive to win, the story of the 2019-2020 season may not lie on the court. Home court advantage has taken a new meaning for both Thunderbirds. The men's and women's teams lasted 11 games before losing at the America First Event Center. Perhaps the best reason for the success, the emergence of a rowdy student section, named the Thunder Crew. Seated in sections A and N, SUU students have packed the house every time the keepers step on the court. Men's basketball has set 3 student attendance records this season, while the women's team has set one of their own. The new standard for men's basketball was set during the game against Weber State, and 1,663 students backed the Thunderbirds. The new energy in the arena has been felt by many members on both basketball teams.
We love having their support. I think there's not words to express how much they affect, the presence in here and what it's like. This is a tough place to play. I think Cedar City's become a tough place to play, and so having that, that fan base is going to be huge, and I think it's going to be something that really kind of helps us get to the next level.
The home crowd environment, the student section, really getting into the games has really elevated our atmosphere and made winning and having a lot of success at home such a better experience, and we want to be a great outlet for the student body to come cheer us on.
The Thunder Crew has showed their love especially for freshman forward Jared Hoppo. Every game without fail, the horde of students will chant Hoppo's name until Coach Simon gives in and gives him his minutes. More often than not, Hoppo puts on a show for the fans.
Oh man, I'm looking at Coach to put me in. That's what. It's a great feeling. I mean, like I love the people in Southern Utah and everyone around us. So it just shows how communalized everyone is and how much love there is for each other. Because I love them and apparently they love me a little bit too.
For many of SU opponents, the crowd has been hard to ignore. But the Thunderbirds use opposing student sections on the road as fuel for their fire.
I mean, they don't really bother us, or at least me anyway. I think it's super fun, and I love that kind of stuff.
It's like 13,000 fans screaming at you negative things. I kind of feed off that because, I want to prove them, I can play. So after the game, they give me my props.
Both teams have appreciated the turnout each and every week and want the Thunder Crew to know how much they mean.
It really does help, and it does bring a lot of energy for us, so thank you.
Like, we really appreciate the support, any support behind women's basketball in our program specifically. Like, getting a lot more people out this year has been great for us. It boosts our confidence. We definitely look forward to playing at home, so them helping us, getting, the public around really helps.
Keep doing what you're doing, and keep supporting us, and we'll support you.
Senior Dwayne Morgan added extra praise and offered fans one more chance to see the Thunderbirds in action.
Thank you, Thunder Crew. I love you. We appreciate you, man, and we couldn't accomplish a lot of things that we did this year if it wasn't for you guys. Keep it going. Oh, and if you can, make sure you come out to support us for the Big Sky tournament, conference tournament in Boise.
With the season winding down, both teams are waiting results of the Big Sky Conference Championship Tournament before seeing if they get another chance to play in front of the Thunder Crew. For SUTV, I'm Thomas Dianella.
As a player on the women's basketball team, what has it been like to have that increased fan involvement from Thunder Crew?
It's super fun, honestly. Just hearing your fans whenever you make a play on offense or defense, it's just, you feel the energy, we're pumped up. And just thinking about the men's teams, when I watch their highlights, when Jared Hoppo goes in and the crowd just goes insane, I think that's just super fun to think about, really.
Yeah, and that UVU game earlier this season was like unreal. It's been a really exciting basketball season for sure.
Yeah, so hopefully they keep it up.
Yeah.
Brianna Aldridge and Danny Moret only played for SU soccer team for 2 seasons before they decided to be done with the sport.
This week, our reporter Kurt Meekum takes a look at what led the two to leave the program.
Being honest, but I don't know, do you feel bad sometimes or no?
No.
After transferring to SUU from Mississippi State, Aldridge and Moret were expecting to have a different level of competition.
So there was a huge level drop, and I felt like I was very, very comfortable off the bat, and I didn't come in really working my butt off.
Not even gonna lie, I had a big head. I went, yeah, I'm an SEC player, I got playing time, this is gonna be a piece of cake for me, I don't have to work.
But soon after their arrival, they had to change their mindsets.
And literally the first day here, when Fred came in, we played 11v11. I was winded. She could tell you I made 2 runs up the field, and I literally had to sit down on the field. I'm like, hold on, I need a second, just give me 1 second. It was so embarrassing. I had never been out of shape in my life because I was just such a workaholic.
Their first year in the program turned out to be very different than they planned. The team was shut out 9 times in 2018, went 2-15, and posted only 1 shutout of their own. During the offseason, both players were ready to take on the challenge of helping the team win more games in 2019.
And then I went home and worked my butt off. I only went home for a week, and then I stayed here the whole summer with Coach I. Just me and Coach I stayed here, and I was like, you know what? I need to get in shape. I'm gonna show them what I can be, and so I worked my butt off.
A couple weeks after Bria came in early, and bless Travis, he is amazing. That's our strength and conditioning coach. He is the most amazing trainer I've ever trained with. He's so nice. And he really helped kick my butt into shape. We were running, we were lifting, he was giving us extra stuff to do on the side, giving us meal plans, we were doing in-body, checking our fat compared to our muscle and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be really dedicated and make sure I show up for this team because Fred, took a leap of faith in recruiting me, and I really wanted to show him that, I can return the favor and really, really show up for you.
But the 2019 season did not start out well. The team was shut out in their first game and then traveled to 14th ranked BYU. Moret was injured, so she was forced to watch the game from the locker room.
And this is when I realized, oh my God, why didn't I even try? It wasn't even worth it because I went to BYU. And granted, BYU is an amazing team. They were top 5 this year. They're amazing, which is why I was so shook we were, scheduled to play them because we're number 300 something. I was sitting there in the locker room watching the game, and we got demolished, killed. I felt so bad for you having to go back into that net and pick up that ball every single time they scored and throw it back out there. Oh, but anyway, I was watching that, and to me it was just so heartbreaking. And I could only imagine what it would be like on the field, because I was crying after that game, because I was like, damn, like, I literally wasted so much time coming here early. Like, wasting my summer here, not being with my family. I'm never with my family because soccer's always a commitment.
With 30 losses over the last 2 seasons, head coach Fred Thompson started to get a lot of the blame.
We would have assistant coaches turning around to us in the van saying that our head coach is bad for us and that we all needed to go into Debbie and complain and get him fired. Every single game we lost, people would just be like, yeah, well, we already know it's because of Fred. Like, we're not good. Like, we're just not good enough. Our team atmosphere was just falling apart because everyone was blaming each other. It was the coach's fault. We had coaches talking crap about other coaches. It was just messy.
It also didn't help that the team had long bus rides to reflect on every loss.
What really got to me was having to drive to Vegas at 5 in the morning, fly from Vegas, go play these games, lose all the games, and have no one like try to change anything. And then it got really exhausting when they started putting the blame on the coach. And not even gonna lie, I kind of got wrapped into it because I disagreed with some of his coaching habits. I love him. He's a great person. I disagree with some things, but honestly that doesn't give me the right to say anything because he recruited me. And we just had an awful, just environment of people just talking about each other, talking about the coaches.
Halfway through the season, Thompson and SU agreed to part ways. With their head coach gone, Aldridge and Moret also decided it was time for them to move on and had full support of the athletic department.
Jonas was great about it. He's like, as long as you are financially stable and you can figure this out, I support you 100%. So then I went to Travis, then I went to Debbie, and I did all my rounds, and they all understood. Even Debbie was like, if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. I want you to know you're always welcome back, but I just don't want you to regret it. And I was like, thank you. Like, and that just showed, like, she had our back from the very beginning.
I talked to Sonia and Debbie, and they're amazing. Honestly, our athletic department, amazing people. I love them. And they were super supportive, and they talked to me through the whole process, and I took some time to really just sit on it and think about it. And the decision came down to my emotional stability. Like, I would be crying all the time. I was depressed. I was emotional. I was anxious. I was angry. Just not enjoying my college experience when this is supposed to be the best time of our lives.
Both players were asked to stay and tough out the season, but Aldridge and Moret knew they had to be done and have no regrets about leaving.
I feel like I'm leaving personally feeling really good, which I still do feel really, really good. Like, as a person, like I felt good walking away. I left nothing on the field. Like, I worked my butt off and changed as a person.
Both players say they could have gotten through the experience, but they had enough drama for a college career.
And it wasn't just SUU. It was all the experience combined. It was Mississippi plus SUU. Because I think if it was just SUU, I probably would have been able to push through it, but it was just too much at that point.
Aldridge and Moret are now focused on cheering for their former teammates, who they still consider close friends.
I've talked to multiple of them since the new coach, and they're all so happy. And so I'm really, really excited to see where this program goes, and I'm going to keep watching them and just...
Yeah, we're actually going to go drive down to Dixie and go support our fellow T-Birds.
So, yeah, I think obviously that's a super tough decision. They mentioned that they love soccer, and it's just what is best for the player at that point, and really what else can you do?
And there's just so much that's unforeseen, so much out of your control as a player, not only your relationship with your coach, but just you have to prioritize your happiness above all else, right? I mean, as important as college soccer is, like, being happy and enjoying your life is much more important.
Yeah, and they said that they were very happy walking away from it, and they still are happy today, so good for them. And they mentioned their teammates being happy, so I think maybe that was just the best thing for them at that time.
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make, but sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. You have to prioritize yourself sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you today. I'm Becca Cardenas.
And I'm Connor Sanders. Be sure to tune in this Tuesday for our news show.
And next Thursday will be our political episode on The Other Show.
Have a great night.
Every day,